your source for everything paranormal. Para-X. The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Para-X, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
Merry meet and blessed be, heed the words I call to thee. Honour the old ones in name and deed, hearken not to others' greed. Pray to the moon when she is round, luck with you shall then abound. Respect the earth, the sky, the sea, as you will it, so mote it be. Welcome to Stirring the Cauldron on the Para-X Radio Network. And now, here's your host, Marla Brooks.
Hey, merry meet everybody, and welcome back for some more cauldron stirring. Yeah, I'm good today. We started off the show with an instrumental bit of music by Kevin MacLeod, and the name of the piece was Sapphire Isle, and that's because we're going to be talking about crystal divination with my guest co-host tonight, Nicholas Pearson, who is not only the wizard of the mineral kingdom, having written 5 books, including Stones of the Goddess and Crystal Healing of the Heart, but he's also done a wonderful deed. He's made a huge contribution to the 2nd edition of my Witch's Oracle deck, which will be out just a couple days before Halloween, which is really fun. I'm excited to have that happen. And since we're both partners in crime in that puts him into the co-host category instead of the guest tonight. So we're going to be talking about how stones and crystals can enhance an oracle reading even more than you can imagine, and so much more. So, Nick, welcome back.
Hello, hello. Thanks for having me. I've been so excited for this. I'm fresh from a lot of travel, but I've had this penciled in for months, and here we are.
Oh, thank God you're back. And I'm just anxious for everybody to see the new deck and the new edition because it's going to be absolutely amazing. And before we start to talk about that, let's talk a little bit about you, because there might be a couple people who, haven't gotten the 911 on you yet. But I want to talk about your interest, first of all, in the mineral kingdom, because it started at a very early age. And so how young was your first recollection of even having any interest in it at all?
I think we can say the official start of my collection was give or take the age of 8, but even years before that, I was that kid who went everywhere and brought rocks home. It could be a parking lot, it could be a gravel driveway, it could be a beautiful state park in the mountains on a summer vacation, but stone just called to me, and it has never stopped. I've never stopped listening to that call. But I think really appropriate. I'd love to share this really fond memory I have of my really subversive rebellion during my middle school years.
Mm-hmm.
Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
I taught myself to meditate. So every morning before class, the rest of the house would clear out, and I was the last one to leave for school or work. So I had plenty of time by myself, and I raided my dad's old music collection. And he had music. Lots of new age music from his corporate days when he had a really high stress job, and that was his unwinding. So I would pop in Enya or something comparable, and I had this crystal sphere that I'd bought myself. I'd saved up for this little crystal ball made out of quartz, and I would sit there in low light and meditate with it, and until images would come to me. And although I didn't know it, I was scrying. I didn't know there was a name for this. Mm-hmm. So crystal divination and I go way back.
Wow. Have you ever stopped and wondered why you were drawn to that? I mean, from a metaphysical sense?
Truthfully, I think there's a decent amount of remembering. My soul feels like it's been around once or twice before, as have all of us. And I don't feel like I'm a stranger to the mineral kingdom. I don't feel like this is my first time working with them. So a deep part of it is that sort of cellular memory where I'm just kind of waking up and trying to get back into the swing that I had established before. But, I think the other part of it is that, a big focus on what I do is teaching and healing and empowering others to do that. And the mineral kingdom is such a catalyst. Whatever we do, it makes it easier to do that. A catalyst is defined as something that requires the amount of effort or energy needed for a desired outcome. So, crystals catalyze our work, and they allow me to do that work with greater ease, hopefully with greater grace. And they've just been the tool that's always stuck by me.
It feels like home, doesn't it?
It really does. Absolutely.
We know this feeling. Now, in the book that goes along with the Oracle deck, the booklet, you've written a truly informative chapter called Oracle Stones, Gems, and Crystals in Divination and Magick. How far back does the history of using the gifts of the mineral kingdom go?
Oh, the very dawn of time. Our earliest homes were probably caves. Some of our oldest pigments and tools were derived from stone. So you can't have the human kingdom without the mineral kingdom being interwoven. But I think maybe more specifically, we can look at really widespread use of gemstones for spiritual purposes that stretch back at least a couple 100,000 years. We may not know exactly what those practices looked like or what they entailed, but it's so probable that the earliest use was apart from ornamental. When people saw a stone that just looked different, sacred, somehow weird, they would associate it with the other world. And so when you have this sort of tenuous link to something beyond ordinary consciousness, you can use that to peer into what's happening beyond the everyday. And you can draw powers from that side to aid you in your manifestation, your magic, your healing. But it also gives you that link to commune with the other side. And that's essentially what divination is. It's contacting the divine.
Mm-hmm. That's why they call it that. Exactly. Do you have a particular, and this is like asking you who your favorite child was if you had a bunch, but is there some particular part of the mineral kingdom that you automatically just gravitate to? Now, I know that you are a crystal skull guy, and that's one of your wonderful things. But is it, some people might say, well, with me it would be gemstones, or, somebody else would come up with something else. Is there one particular subhead, maybe, I guess, in the mineral kingdom that completely just absorbs your attention and how much you're drawing it, it's drawing itself to you, and vice versa?
if I had to narrow down my focus to just like one category of things, it could probably just be quartz crystals, and there are very many forms, whether, the conventional, clear quartz, smoky quartz, or the micro and macro crystal and the cryptocrystalline varieties. So we get chalcedony and jasper and other fun things sort of in the mix. But, I could study the shapes and patterns and combinations of quartz morphologies until the end of time and just never stop being amused. And that's the magic. When my grandfather gave me my first piece of quartz, everyone goes, "Oh, it's beautiful. The light passes through. It's luminous." But there was something about that geometry that spoke to me on like a soul level. So if I could do nothing but study crystal forms until I cease to be present in this physical body, I'd be pleased.
I like that. And you were talking about your first divination experience, when you were young and everything, and get the crystal. And it made me laugh because 100 years ago when I was young, a friend of mine and I were going to try scrying. We really wanted to try scrying, but we didn't have a crystal ball. And so, of course, we couldn't afford one either. And we were just trying to figure out, what do we do now? So down the street, they were having a garage sale. And one of the things that they had for sale was a crystal bear. And it had a nice big round rump. And it only cost 25 cents. So that was our first attempt at scrying through the butt of a crystal bear for 25 cents. But it was a beautiful crystal. I mean, it was really nice. It was heavy. It was beautiful. I don't think we ever managed to be able to scry with it. I mean, we only had... I'll tell you a really quick story why we probably didn't continue. Because we took the bear into her walk-in closet because her grandmother was kind of watching over us, and we figured she wouldn't like that. And so we took the bear into the closet, and we put it on the table, and she was doing the Lord's Prayer and all this stuff. And all of a sudden we heard this outside the door, something go, ooh, like that, right? Well, we're kids. We're 10, 11 years old, scared to death. So we go flying out the closet door because it was a swing door. And all of a sudden, we heard this woman cursing in Spanish, really loud, and holding her forehead because she was back there behind the door. She was trying to teach us a lesson about not messing up with that kind of stuff. And when we flung the door open, it hit her right smack in the forehead. And this was a very old woman. And she had a big goose egg on her head. So we never went back. We never tried to do that again because, but I think I don't know, is this true? I'm not really good at scrying. Is it one of these things that when you're young, you can kind of get into it better, and as you get older and older, it just becomes easier and easier?
I think it works that way for many people. Not everyone is very visually inclined. And if you're not very visually inclined, scrying is probably not the best form of divination for you. It helps to have the ability to daydream and to daydream well. But, there are people out there who have conditions like aphantasia where they don't have the ability to form a mental picture of things. So you might be better off using a totally different form of divination rather than scrying. I happen to like it. I don't often practice these days, but it's certainly fun to do.
Yeah, I've like I said, I've tried, and Tim Shaw made me a beautiful black scrying mirror at one point, and I was thrilled. Well, I'm never too stubborn not to try and go back, so I'll try to do that because it just intrigues me. It's just kind of really wonderful. All right, let's talk about. We were just talking about there are hundreds of ways for using crystals for divination, and people probably think crystal balls as one of the most well-known scrying method, and as we just said, scrying isn't for everybody. But lots of people use crystals and stones almost inadvertently. That came to me when I was writing this out. Like wearing birthstones in a ring or in other pieces of jewelry and just thinking that it's a nice token to show off what month you were born in. Wow. But correct me if I'm wrong, I personally believe that we get more from wearing our birthstones than just a pretty piece of jewelry. Am I totally off the mark, or does it happen?
I think conscious intent is probably the most important piece of the equation. But when we couple conscious intent with a tool that's, made for us, that does wonders. And, made for us doesn't mean that it had to come from a custom occultist jeweler who was able to, work his magic into it. I mean, made for us can just mean that it's the right piece that speaks to us, that resonates to us. And for many people, they choose things because they're simply beautiful. But I believe that, since crystals are such potent catalysts, that we might come to something for its beauty and receive benefits that we were totally unaware of.
And okay, I don't know if you know the answer to this, but speaking of birthstones, do you know who decided which stone goes with which sign? Do you know the history of that?
In a really cursory fashion, the history that we use today in most of the Western world, at least, is decided by the jewelry companies. So it's not as super mystical as we want it to be. The current, most favored list that you find in your average jeweler is carefully curated to ensure that colored gemstones are sold all 12 months of the year. And that kind of takes the magic out of it. Now, a lot of them have had those same associations for much longer. But, if we look at tanzanite, for example, which is a popular birthstone for December, tanzanite's only been in production for a few decades. And the practice of using birthstones or astrological talismans made out of gemstones stretches back at least to the ancient Chaldeans. So, we're talking 4,000 or 5,000 years ago, maybe even longer. The idea of astrological gems is an extraordinarily ancient one, but different cultures have assigned different values to them. So if we use Ayurvedic astrology called Jyotish, we could maybe look at their principal stone of Mercury. And so if you're born under a sign like Virgo is ruled by Mercury, then the stone they would give to you would be emerald. But if we go to, the Western occult traditions, we're going to find emerald associated with Venus predominantly, and in some circles with Saturn. So stones can have many facets to them. And really, I think at the end of the day, somewhere on your chart, all 12 signs are represented, even if it's just the 12 houses of that wheel. So we are all 12 signs. If you absolutely do not love the birthstone that the Gemological Institute of the Americas says you should wear, go find another stone. I'm sure you're going to find a great tool, and it'll represent something on your chart.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, that sometimes, we all have special stones that we're drawn to, and we just kind of wonder if we're thinking, okay, well, this is my birthstone. This is going to be lucky for me. This is going to be great for me. And it would be one of those stones that you just don't resonate with, and it doesn't resonate with you, because I think it's a two-way street far as that happens. So how would somebody tell if they were having the right birthstone, do you think?
I think with the tools that we have at our disposal today, you can go to a lot of more metaphysically oriented books on crystals and see huge lists of different stones for different signs and different planets. And you can kind of custom choose. So like Judy Hall, for example, one of her specialties in life is astrology. She's actually a karmic astrologer and a damn good one. So, you can trust the kind of astrological information that she's providing. In Stones of the Goddess, there's a table of appendices where you're going to find astrological information for the stones that are in the book, not for the ones outside of it. But, that'll give you more than just your standard, there are 12 stones because there are 12 months of the year. So, start with a list like that. See if something calls to you. Maybe look at trends. If you're looking at lists for, Capricorn, and you find that you have a lot of garnet in your collection, and garnet's the traditional birthstone for January, and for Capricorn, maybe there's a really strong link that you should do some work with garnet. But, maybe you're a Capricorn and you absolutely despise garnet. So find another stone. I promise there'll be a good one for you.
Yeah, and they won't hold a grudge. They'd rather be with someone that wanted them anyway, right?
For sure. Although if you have that strong a feeling about garnet, I think you should probably work with it anyway. There's probably some lesson you're unwilling to learn. But that's a different conversation.
Good sign. All right. So you've done the same thing that the astrologers do and the people that are in the gem industry do. You have chosen a stone or crystal for each of the cards in the new second edition, which is Oracle deck. And so since that's clearly a segue to talk about the deck, let me just say first that to everybody that Nicholas didn't just choose a stone for each of the 45 cards. He also wrote a chapter in the accompanying book on the deck on Divination and Magick. So, Nicholas, I could thank you 1,000 times over, but it wouldn't be enough because adding this aspect to the deck, it's a great enhancement to the readings that people are going to get when they're using the cards. So that being said, was it a chore to match up the 45 cards with stones?
Truth be told, when I first got my hands on the original edition of the deck, I kind of thumbed through and I immediately started writing some notes. And I'd say probably half of the stones that I chose in that initial list were ones that I stuck with for the final draft that I sent. So there were some that were like really obvious, like the Eye of Horus. I can't think of a better stone than lapis lazuli because lapis lazuli was one of the preferred mediums for carving this glyph in Egypt. If you look at something like a Chinese dragon, the very first depictions, the very first carvings that we have probably in the whole world of dragons are Chinese jades carved in the shapes of dragons. So there were a few things that were so obvious, like I couldn't help but just immediately go there. And then the rest, it was kind of like, a little bit of a mystery to solve. Like I was a detective and I was trying to, work out the clues in reverse. If I knew this was the overall meaning of the card, what stone best represented that? And the rest just kind of fell into place.
Well, and the beauty of it was, I was absolutely stunned when I was going over your list of gems that match the cards because the little blurb that you talked about that stone in relation to the card matched pretty much exactly the incantation that I had written for that. You had to think really hard to do, or maybe not, maybe it was easy for you, but it was like the incantation and your gemstone explanation were married and or Siamese twins, not to be separated. And so that totally amazed me. Really did.
That part was probably the biggest challenge. I think anyone who's read anything I've ever written knows that I'm not really good at being brief. So, with something like obsidian, which is, one of my favorite stones, it's the very first stone in my very first book ever. It's the stone that I attributed to the mirror card. I wrote more than 10,000 words about obsidian in my first book. And I had to think to myself, okay, what can I say in 3 sentences? Because I want it to fit on this page, and I want it to only be relevant to the meaning of the card. And, I think it worked out.
Well, it did. And, obsidian, that might have been your first experience like that. But I think obsidian was something that got you and I friendly because for people that don't know, Nicholas had been on my show, and I had this mysterious, big, huge, like the size of, you could hold it in your hand, and it was heavy, black, shiny thing that was my mother's. And when she passed away, when I was cleaning out her house, I found this big, black thing, hard rock thing, shiny. And I kept it all these years. She was gone a long time, and I kept thinking, you know what? It looks like tar. It looks like a big thing of shiny tar, but it didn't smell like tar. And so when Nicholas was on the show, and I generally don't do this. I don't ask guests to help me with something. I don't ask favors. But this thing, he was so brilliant on the show, and I thought he's got to know this. And so I sent him a Facebook message and a picture, and I said, I don't want to bother you. I'm doing, the humble thing. I'm really, I don't want to bother you, but could you kind of help me and tell me what this is? And, he came back with a wonderful explanation of what it was and where it comes from and where it's made. And my mother, then it went 2 and 2 together because my mother knew somebody in Arizona that was a miner. And he apparently got this hunk and gave it to her. That's where it came from. And you know the history of obsidian better than I do, and you might be able to explain it better. But it with him telling me that, where it was from and what it was and what it looked like and through the picture and everything, I was able to put together why Mom had this huge hunk of black stuff for the longest time, and maybe why I kept it rather than toss it. I don't know. But it was beautiful. So that's how Nicholas and I began to talk, other than host and guest, because he really opened a couple of doors and a couple of eyes for me. And so I think that was really very cool. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Oh, it was my pleasure.
So we've got like 5 minutes before the break. Throw something at me out of whatever, because after the break, and I'll tell this to the chat room now, we're going to kind of show you how the gemstones work for the cards, and we will be doing some readings, one card reading, and that way we can tell you what the card's about, we can tell you what the incantation is, and then Nicholas can tell you what the gemstone is, and then we'll talk about how we use the gemstones with the cards and in the divination. So, but in the next 5 minutes, what do you got?
Oh, what do I have? How about a really unusual form of crystal divination that uses what's called a hagstone or a holy stone?
Oh, I love hagstones.
Me too. I was super excited when I went to England earlier this month. I actually found a flint that was a natural hagstone on the Thames River in London. So that was like my holy grail find. I just wanted one, and I found it. So, but they were often used to kind of peer beyond the veil and to see what else was there, whether it was the things that go bump in the night, or to see the good folk, the fairy folk. Mm-hmm. But it was also used to commune with whoever might be there to receive answers. And one way this eventually evolved into giving us answers was through something that resembles the modern use of a pendulum. People would tie cords or ribbons or strings to them and use them to spell out words over, a piece of paper on which everything had been inscribed, or even, I'm sure, to answer yes or no questions. So if you want a really fun, natural divination tool, just go find a rock with a hole in it and tie some string to it. Not to mention that happens to be one of the stones in the deck, so you'll be one step closer to having all 45.
That's great, because I've always loved hagstones, and maybe because I'm getting to that stage, maybe I have an affinity to them. I don't know, but it's really an interesting stone. I got a question from the chat room, which is good. Sherry wants to know if a clear stone type ideally is occluded in this stone. Does that make a difference?
Are we talking about like if we're using them for divination in general? If that is the case, then I have better success scrying in stones that are cloudy rather than clear. Some people prefer like the totally transparent, and if that's what you're aiming for, glass is much cheaper than quartz. It'll be one of the few times I'll tell you to buy glass instead of quartz. But I honestly think that all those little tiny veils and frosts and cracks and fissures give you a much more interesting surface that you can scry inside. It's almost like, those magic eye posters, those computer-generated stereographs that when you stare at them, the 3D image emerges. That's a lot like what scrying into a translucent or transparent stone does for me. You kind of let your eyes unfocus until something is revealed from within. Yeah.
It's I don't know. I like the characteristics because, like, let's take moonstone, because, that's one of my favorite stones. There are so many different types and colors, and it's like the most wonderful stone, I think, except for maybe peacock ore, which isn't a stone, but I kind of like peacock ore. But there's that's the thing about the mineral kingdom. If you say quartz, is there a number of how many actual types of quartz there is, or is it kind of infinite?
Like from a mineral science perspective, if we were to number it, if it's silicon dioxide and it's alpha state, it's quartz, and they don't really go much more specific than that. Mm-hmm. But nature surprises us with her color palette and her variation in shape and size and mass. So there's a nearly endless way of transforming quartz in the end result, whether we have transparent quartz crystal or even lowly flint. Flint is also a form of quartz. It's just everywhere. We never get bored of quartz.
And, something just came up to me. I just see something in the chat, and something happened today, and it's about buying gemstones or any kind of stones. A friend of mine is doing an event tomorrow, and she was going to take some hematite with her as a healing stone to sell. She got some rose quartz, and she got some hematite. And she ordered it from Amazon, and they didn't send what she ordered. What they sent her was the magnetic fake hematite.
Yeah.
And, she recognized it right away, that it wasn't what she bought. She didn't know exactly why it was different. But I said, well, maybe hematite has a little bit of iron in it, but the hematite I don't stick together.
Right.
And so I think it's kind of like a buyer beware thing when you're buying something. Now, I noticed on Amazon, their sellers, if you're getting from there, will say this is genuine. They guarantee genuine, but some of them don't.
Yeah.
And so the ones that promise what you get, you probably are getting what you're asking for. But this was almost like a bait and switch. So, it's probably even if you go to an occult store to find stones you want, how do you know that they're not fake?
Oh, that's going to take longer to answer than I think we'll have time for. But, with hematite in particular, hematite will respond to magnetism. It can be attracted by a magnet. Mm-hmm. Over time, it can be given an artificial magnetism, but it's usually quite weak. So if you have any of those really strong magnets, they're usually artificial. What they'll do is actually take ceramide magnets or other really strong magnets and hide them inside a case of either compressed or simulated hematite.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have a bracelet like that, and I knew what it was when I got it. Yeah. So it's just kind of pretty. But she was going to go sell them as hematite, and I said, you can't do that now. I said, here is why you can't do this, and so she's going to go and replace them, and made a complaint with Amazon. But it just brought to mind that people really need to beware, buyer beware. If something is too cheap, if something doesn't look right, then sometimes trust your instincts. So,
for sure.
All right. Well, we're going to be back in 2 minutes, so everybody can go grab some gems. And when you come back, we'll do some readings if you want. So we'll be back.
Don't go away. There's more Stirring the Cauldron with Marla Brooks right after these important messages.
Red, where are you going?
I'm going back to the paranormal view, back where I belong.
Please, take me with you.
No, I'm through with everything here. I want to see if there's something left in life I haven't explored. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, Red, don't run to them. They talk about ghosts and hauntings, UFOs, and all kind of supernatural scary stuff.
You'll never understand, will you, Scarlet?
No.
Well, that's your misfortune.
Red, if you go, where shall I go? What shall I do?
Frankly, my dear. Line.
Oh, you gotta be kidding.
That's the Paranormal View with your host, Henry Foister, Jeffrey Gould, and Barbara Duncan. Every Saturday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the Para X Radio Network.
Missed an episode of Stirring the Cauldron? Then be sure to check out marlabrooks.com and check out the archive. And while you're there, check out Marla's weekly Witches Oracle card reading. Explore the site to find many great resources, such as information on tarot, oracle readings, metaphysical consultations, and links to all of Marla's books. That's marlabrooks.com. Welcome back to Stirring the Cauldron. Once again, here's your host, Marla Brooks.
Yep, 2 minutes and we're back with me and my co-host, Nicholas Pearson, today. And we are going to be talking about oracle divination and how to work with the stones, with the oracle deck. We've got a whole lot left to talk about, but just to prove a point, if anybody in the chat room would like a one-card reading, which is pretty much just going to tell you one little thing, where you are, what's going on with you today, how's your life today, it's that kind of thing. I'm not going to go into a full card reading. So, but it's good to know. So if you just let me know in private chat or just wave at me in the chat room, I'd be happy to do that. So in the meantime, I'm looking at the list of stones that you have here, and they are just, there are so many. Most of them I know, some of them I don't. But I think it's good to know that there are so many different things out there that you can relate to and get involved with and stuff. Stones are very, very, very interesting to learn about, but more importantly to feel, to hold. When you go into an occult store or something where they're selling stones, don't you feel like putting both hands in the pot and just kind of hanging on to them and rubbing them around and everything, because they really feel good, especially the polished ones.
Oh yeah, I was just doing that with some blue chalcedony today in one of our local shops here in Central Florida. And, it's just this great tactile sense, but that stone is particularly calming. It's like the stone of serenity. So how could you not want to invite that a little bit deeper?
Yeah. And I mean, if I could buy them all, I would. I mean, I would have just jars and jars and boxes of stones because they're just so beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. All right. We have Taker. So Patty would like a reading. So let me just shuffle the deck real quick. And you've got your list in front of you, right, Nick?
I do.
There we go. All right. So let me shuffle. And okay, we've got the owl. All right. Just 1 second because my computer just went bloop. I touched something wrong and the screen went about 10 shades of pink and purple. All right. Owls, people always revere owls. They've revered them for years and years and years. And during medieval times, like in Western and Central Europe, it was fabled that owls were actually witches and wizards in disguise. I've always liked that. But to this day, I mean, owls are sometimes considered to be a witch's familiar, like if you watch the Harry Potter movies and Hedwig. They share a spiritual communication between the witch and the owl, they say, and they even share the same secret powers of the night. And the owl has always been connected with magic and shamanism and heightened senses throughout the ages, and some have thought of the owl as a cat with wings because they share similar characteristics and personality. So when you get an owl card pulled in this drawing, it symbolizes wisdom. It symbolizes the ability to see things that are hidden. Like you can see omens, you get deception, observation, and total truth. So the card is telling you to trust your intuition right now. Pay attention to what's going on in your world, and you will not only instinctively know what to do to solve the issues that have been kind of weighing heavily on your mind, but you'll also be able to see and bring about things that are yet to come. And so if you had the cards and had the incantation, this is how it goes. Spirit guides and teachers, please let me see the whole hidden world that now surrounds me. I need to see clearly both inside and out. I need your assistance. Of that, there's no doubt. So you're calling on your guides to help you get the clarity that the owl will give you. All right, Nicholas, what is the stone for the owl?
So the stone for the owl card is iolite. Iolite is usually kind of an indigo to even sometimes purplish color, variety of cordierite. It's often considered a very shamanic kind of stone. It helps establish contact with your guides, your spirits, whoever is on the other side, to help you kind of peer beyond the ordinary vision to see more clearly what's happening in a particular situation. It can help you kind of surrender to the unknown and help you think outside the box. Mm-hmm.
Now, let's talk about when we can't tell everybody, well, there's a stone for each card. Go out and buy 45 stones, unless you get a really good deal, and I would do that. But, but what are the stones? Let's suppose they don't have the particular stone that their card comes up with. What are, I don't know if you want to call them the neutral stones or kind of a general stone that they could use in its place?
I think first start with the stones you've got in your collection. Do you have something that's remotely comparable in color, in clarity? Do you have something that has the same personal symbolism to you? Like maybe you have another stone that you associate with owl imagery or that sort of shamanic spirit guide kind of imagery, in which case use that first and foremost. Secondly, if you just don't have access to that, you've got a few options that traditionally have been considered to be good substitutes. You can't go wrong with clear quartz. Energetically speaking, it attracts all 7 rays, all 7 parts of the spectrum to it in equal temperament. So that means we can use it to kind of tap into the current of color and energy that any gem might have. There are several myths that connect opals to all gems. Of course, that's not exactly budget friendly. If you want a really nice, flashy, colorful opal, so it will have the energy of all gemstones, it's going to set you back probably more than just buying 45 stones. But another option is to go out into nature and find a rock. It doesn't have to be a glamorous one, just one that speaks to you, and use that as your touchstone, your talisman that you can actually combine with the imagery of the card and the words of the incantation and enchant it. Literally speak its power into being, and it'll become the substitute you need.
See, I never knew that. I didn't know you could do that. I collect rocks here and there just because of their shapes or their colors or something, but I didn't know that was a good substitute for something else or the general, because actually when you do that, though, and you put your energy into it, it ends up to be your stone, your rock. So therefore it will work for you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it might not be a gem quality piece of iolite, but it becomes your totem of that energy of the owl card. And then, you could honestly make a divination set out of 45 stones you've found. And then, that would be so deeply personal, and you would know what they mean and what they symbolize. And there you are.
Very good idea. Wow. Thank you. All right. Kat would like a card pulled. So let me shuffle again and grab it out. Okay. Skeleton Key. Love that card. I love skeleton keys. But a little bit about the card. The skeleton key has deep symbolism to it. In ancient lore, the Greeks associated with Hecate, who held the key to all magic. Now, Romans attributed skeleton keys to protection, as in securing the doors of the home and keeping evil from entering. So keys open locks and provide access to opening doorways, both physically as well as spiritually. They're very powerful instruments to lock and unlock doors at will, breaking barriers, finding safe passage, and breaking free. So when this card shows up, it tells you that when you're stuck in a situation without hope or ideas, which you seem to be maybe a little bit right now at the moment, use the symbolism of the key as a way of unlocking new prospects and finding solutions. Envision a locked door before you, and then take the key in your mind and unlock the door. And the incantation says, all locks have keys, all wind has breeze. Most doors swing open with relative ease. This key I hold is a metaphor to unlock all the doors that were locked before. And Nicholas, what's the stone for the skeleton key?
This one I chose aventurine for because it is a stone of luck, of opportunity. It can help us really reframe our focus and plant seeds that will grow and develop into new opportunities. So it's often associated with boosting mental powers. So when you feel really stuck and you need a fresh idea to get you unstuck, this can be a helpful stone for that.
Good. Okay. All right. Moofy wants a reading. Okay. Ooh. All right. And that wasn't a moo, Oofy. That was an ooh. Long story, Nicholas. But anyway, we got magic candles. I love the magic candles. And again, a little background on that card. Talks about the dancing flame of a candle represents the element of fire, and it's been used as a witch's tool for centuries. And candles can absorb your personal energy and then release the energy as they burn. And we know candle magic is very, very simple and powerful form of sympathetic magic, and it's been in existence for many centuries. So the body of the candle is made up from the elements of earth, air, water, and fire. Well, the fire comes in the wick, sorry. But fire is easy, and spirit can be represented by the wick of the candle. And as the wick is where the potential lies, it will be unfolded, the story. So all of us, and people don't think about this, but we all start our experiences with candle magic at an early age because we blow out birthday candles on our cakes. And we're told to close our eyes and make a wish and blow out the candles. And while today may not be your birthday, because you got this card, it means that you may have been granted a wish to make. So light a candle and concentrate on what you want and let the flame of your intent burn. Because right now anything is possible if you want it badly enough. And the incantation goes, with this flame that burns so bright, I wish I may, I wish I might. I use this fire to inspire, so please bring me what I desire. Nicholas, what's the stone?
Garnet is our stone of the magical candles. Once it was referred to as carbunculus, meaning little coal, so it's always had this kind of fiery symbolism to it that connects to our passions, our desires, and the crystal structure of it being cubic enables us to anchor things. So it helps us draw forth that flame of inspiration to really want and wish and hope and dream and manifest it into the material world.
Okay. Okay, we have Sherry, and I'm shuffling. You know, I have to say, and you'll find this too, Nicholas, the new deck, because I got an advanced copy, as you know, are so much easier and softer to deal with and shuffle. They're sturdy, but they have a really nice feel when you shuffle. And the other ones were good, but these are like really wonderful.
I look forward to playing with that.
Oh, you'll get one soon. Promise you. Okay, we've got Sherry got the Merkaba. Now, a Merkaba is an extremely powerful symbol. It's a combination of 2-star tetrahedrons, and one is pointing up to the heavens, channeling energy down from the universe to the earth plane, and one is pointing downwards, drawing energy up from the earth beneath. So the top or the upward pointing tetrahedron is male and rotates clockwise, and the bottom or downwards pointing one, being female, rotates counterclockwise. So it's a very divine light vehicle, allegedly used by ascended masters to connect with each of those and reach those in tune and higher realms. Its crystalline energy field is comprised of specific sacred geometries that align the mind and body and heart together. And so this enables us to experience expanded awareness, connects us with elevated potentials of consciousness, and restores access and memory of the infinite possibilities of our being. So the message of the Merkaba is pretty simple. It sounds really complicated when you explain what it is, but the message is simple. Your motivations are the foundation for what you want to manifest in life. And those motivations are based in fear and limitations that will be all you will get if you do that. You know, you have to be positive. Don't put the negative in. But if you're motivated by your heart and your true inner power, there are no limits, and the abundance will be yours. So that's the message. Drop the fear. Check your motivation, where that's coming from. Grab your inner power, and that'll help. Now, the incantation is, knock down the walls that have kept the fear in. Throw out limitations, and let me begin to trust in the power that lives deep in my heart. Now is the time for a brand new start. So, what you got?
Well, for this, I chose selenite, which is the more gem quality version of a mineral called gypsum. since one of the themes of this deck is knocking down walls, I think it's really appropriate because gypsum is one of the primary constituents in drywall. The plasterboard that hangs in our walls. So it helps us kind of transcend that. And selenite's also all about light. It floods the body, the mind, the soul with light from the higher realms, casting out fear, darkness, despair, and allows us to operate from that perspective of the higher self where our true will is rooted.
Okay. Now let's talk a little bit, because we have a little bit of a lull about readings. But let's talk about the chapter. And because you talk in the chapter that you wrote about crystal spells, you talk about crystal layouts, crystal divination. I mean, this is really comprehensive and really kind of amazing. But let's talk a little bit about crystal spells.
Yeah, so, hypothetically, with your selection of stones to accompany the cards in here, you have the opportunity to make 45 gemstone talismans. You have the symbolism of the card that you can meditate on, maybe even place the stone on top of it. You have a beautiful incantation provided for you, and then a gemstone that's married to both the symbolism of the card and the purpose of the incantation. So it would be no tall order to just kind of put these parts and pieces together to create magic in your everyday life. The beauty of using gemstones in spell work is, unlike candles or herbs or incense that you're continuously replacing because you're consuming them, they are, pretty budget friendly. You buy one rock, you use it over and over again. Or if you're like me, you buy a whole lot of rocks and you use them over and over again. But that's beyond the scope of today. So when you work with them in spellcraft, you really have the chance to kind of recreate the magic again and again, maybe build upon the magic again and again. And I really love that with the incantations in the deck, it gives you like a tangible touchstone, so you can put it in your pocket, you can wear it around your neck, you can turn it into a ring or a bracelet or whatever feels good to you, and then everywhere you go, you have the reminder of this magic that you are creating.
That's good. All right, we have another request for a reading, and it's from Jigsy, and the card that was pulled for Jigsy was the Hag. Now, I'm just telling people that hags are not bad. They're not, hags are wise women. They're just older wise women. It's not like, something you see on TV. But, in folklore times, the hag was an ugly old nightmare spirit. She was often seen as malevolent in nature. But there are many varieties of hags. And so she's also depicted as a kind of fairy, a nature spirit, or a goddess who can shapeshift and appear in the form of a woman. So as with the crone, she can either be helpful or malicious, and in many cases she's known, again, as the wise woman. So the old adage, with age comes wisdom, is the message of this card. As we grow, we learn. We mentally shapeshift into becoming the person that we were destined to be. So, Jigsy, those people that are closest to you now might have noticed a bit of a transformation in recent months. And it looks like you've been feeling the change as well. And it's for the good. And so the card is telling you to embrace the new you. Don't be afraid to use the wisdom that you've gained over the years to reinvent yourself if need be, or to show yourself to others in a different light, as a different person. The incantation is, changes come and changes go. With age comes wisdom, this we know. I will use that wisdom to grow and thrive, and once again to come alive. So, yeah, what's the stone for that?
I'm sure it's going to be no surprise that it's a hagstone.
Oh, I'm surprised, yeah.
Yeah, so, if you think about what brings us to our state of relative enlightenment, that journey of age and time, the progression of the years, it's the same thing that allows holes to be worn into stones, to turn them into hagstones or holy stones. And therefore they can help us get leverage with our own time and experience to cultivate a greater sense of wisdom. They're also super protective, so if we need to petition the goddess, especially through her visage as the crone, for assistance, carrying one of these is a great way to do it. Hang them over the bed. They're thought to cast off nightmares. They're just such useful stones. Everyone go dig for hagstones. You'll thank me later, I think.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I'm so happy I got mine. I when I learned about them, I said, I have to get one. And I wasn't any place in nature where I could, like dig one up or find one. And so I ordered one, and it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. I mean, it's right there. I look at it all the time. And some people, like someone in chat, I forget who, said, oh, Patty didn't know what a hagstone was before, so she learned something about that. So, yeah. If you pick up the deck with the book and everything, you're going to learn a whole lot about stones and how to use them. And the deck is due to be out just right before Halloween, I think the 28th of October. So that's pretty good timing. And there's just so much in there, so much that Nicholas wrote to teach us and guide us about stones and the minerals and gems. And oh my God, I mean, there's just way a lot in there. And also, but while we're on the subject, Nicholas has several books that you would really like to have in your library. I'm just convincing you that yes. Okay. Tell everybody where they can find your website, where they can find your books, and where they can find you.
Well,
ta-da.
I think I'm easy to track down, but let's go in order. So my website is www.theluminouspearl.com. You can also find me on Facebook and Instagram as The Luminous Pearl. So that'll give you some real basic info. Facebook is usually where I host information about events, workshops, tours that I'm doing. You can find my books hopefully everywhere books are sold. So visit your local occult bookstore, your local spiritual shop or metaphysical retailer. If they don't have my books on their shelves, I'm sure they're happy to order them for you. Of course, you can find the chain bookstores, and they'll offer that same opportunity for you. And you can find them online via Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com, and through my publisher's website, which is innertraditions.com. And yeah, just stay tuned. I've got a very exciting year coming up next year. Very early in the year, there's a new book launch, and then there are other good things that I can't quite say yet, but that are coming. So please stay tuned.
Yes, and every time he has something really wonderful coming, you can bet your butt he'll be on my show. And also somebody in chat room is asking where they can get the Oracle deck, and same thing, you can get it at any bookstore, either that or order it from an independent store, which we like to, help our independent booksellers. You can pre-order it right now through schifferbooks.com or Amazon.com. They're both taking pre-orders. So that's good. You don't have to stand in line. And, I guess the sooner you get your order in, the quicker you're going to get the deck. So this is good. So hopefully you'll get it. And she says it's better to buy from Schiffer or get it from Amazon. It's a personal choice. I mean, the deck is going to be the same deck no matter where you get it. And it's lovely. The box is bigger. The cards are a little bit the same, but they're so much different. But you can read the book that goes along with it a little bit easier. And they really did a marvelous job. And I have to thank Schiffer and everybody included for making the deck so much better and gorgeous. And thank you very much. And we're going to get out of here now. So thank you, Nicholas. We'll be in touch. And until next time, everybody, blessed be and merry meet again. Good night.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of Stirring the Cauldron with Marla Brooks. Please join us again next week at the same time for another great guest and more cauldron stirring. Any rebroadcast or other use of this program without explicit permission is strictly prohibited. Copyright 2019. The Mysterioso March by Kevin MacLeod is licensed through incompetech.com.